Welcome to round 7 of the Banter Racing League on F1 2018, and we are here for the Canadian Grand Prix from the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. And for the first time in the league, Vladimir Jega took the pole position, and it was a time of 1:19.3 in a wet qualifying session. It was Jega's first pole in the entire league, and Mercedes' second pole of the season, as Wesley is in P2 for Ferrari, 2 tenths behind him. Then Agonza in 3rd place for Haas, ahead of Sentry in 4th place for Mercedes, ahead of Combined in 5th, and then Ventrox in 6th, and then Lucky Racer in 7th, and then Harry Tech in 8th, and then Savage the Boom, and then Fajal. It's my second worst quality position. Oh, no time.
I didn't have time to fucking intermediate.
My worst was 8th. So now we are waiting for Monaco the start of round 7 of this Canadian Grand Prix. We are here for the formation lap. And Jega's leading it, Wesley second, and Agonza in 3rd for Haas, who is just dropping back a bit from the 2 in front. And then there's Sentry, then Combined, then there's Ventrox. And Lucky Racer has actually got ahead of Ventrox on the track for some odd reason. And actually Sentry has gone across the grass at turn 3 there, so that's going to actually ruin his tyres a bit. It could affect his start, but we'll see what happens there. And there's Harry in the other Red Bull, there's Savage in the Torosso, there's the Boom in the Ferrari, who was race banned last race from Monaco because he allegedly crashed on purpose in Spain to cause the safety car, which caused those drive-through penalties for Agonza and Whatmaster in the Spanish Grand Prix. And it was deemed that the Boom crashed on purpose, even though he actually said he didn't. But he said he got a race ban for crashing on purpose, and he's back now for Canada. And here is Wesley weaving his car, and now coming into the final chicane. What is going to happen at the start of the Canadian Grand Prix? Here we go. Jega is leading it. Wesley is in P2. Agonza is leading a very interesting train of cars. As now, here we go, getting ready for the start of the Canadian Grand Prix. Here in Montreal, Fajal is way back in the pack after he thought the formation lap was a little bit too quick for his liking, so he was a bit too far back on the formation lap. So, here we are getting ready for round 7 in Canada of the Banter Racing League on F1 2018. And it's now away we go for the Canadian Grand Prix, and Wesley gets a good start. He's coming alongside Jega, come down towards turn 1, but Jega has the inside line and gets into the lead and keeps the lead into turn 1. Wesley is holding second into turn 2 there, and Agonza gets 3rd, but now Sentry's on his inside, coming down towards this corner. There's 3 wide between Lucky Racer, Fajal, and Savage. Savage tries to go on the inside of Fajal, and there's a little bit of carnage there, and Ventrox has just hit the wall on the exit of that corner, and I think the 2 Red Bulls are involved as well. But it's now Vladimir Jega leading after Sector 1 from Wesley in 2nd, Agonza in 3rd, ahead of Sentry, and Lucky Racer in 5th, ahead of Fajal from 11th to 6th, and then Savage ahead of Harry, and then Combined in 9th, dropped down to 9th from 5th, and then Ventrox down to 10th, and the Boom in 11th. As now here is Jega leading into the hairpin. Wesley right behind him in 2nd. Then Agonza has Sentry right behind him, coming down onto the straight now. As Vladimir Jega pulls away on the straight, here comes Agonza now coming down towards the front. Here they come down towards the final chicane. Jega leads, as now here comes Agonza to the inside of Wesley, coming down into the final chicane, and he gets that move done into the final chicane and gets 2nd place. Agonza gets 2nd place for Haas, as now Sentry is now challenging him, coming down towards turn 1, and Sentry takes 3rd place. Wesley loses 2 places in the space of 2 corners, as now, and on 2 straights as well, because he has a wet setup which is very slow in the straights. So it's now Vladimir Jega leading after lap 1, Agonza in 2nd place, then Sentry in 3rd for Mercedes, and then Wesley in 4th for Ferrari, head of Lucky Racer in 5th for Williams, and then it's Fajal in 6th for Renault, head of Savage in 7th for Toro Rosso, then Combined in 8th for Red Bull, Ventrox in 9th for Force India, the Boom in 10th for Ferrari, And Harry Tech in the pits, in the other Red Bull, he got damage due to that incident on lap 1. And here is Fajrul pressurizing Lucky Racer coming into the hairpin. And now here we are back with Vladimir Jagger now. And now here we are with Wesley getting pressurized by the Williams of Lucky Racer. Here we go. This is an exciting first few laps here in Canada. Wesley is very slow on the straights, and here comes Lucky Racer now, coming into the final chicane, and he doesn't quite get past him there. As now, here we go, coming onto the pit straight, on board with Lucky Racer now, coming down towards turn 1, and he's going to get the slipstream into turn 1, but he doesn't have a look there, and that Wesley stays in 4th and Lucky Racer 5th, but he runs a little bit wide there, does the Ferrari, and does Lucky Racer get the opportunity to pass him into the next corner? Nope. And Wesley holds on to that corner, to that place. He has, obviously because of the wet setup, he has more downforce, so he's going to pull away in the corners. But Lucky Racer is going to get him on the straights. So, yeah. So now moving on to lap 3 of the Canadian Grand Prix, and Agonza is very close to Vladimir Jagger in the Mercedes, coming down towards the final chicane. Here we go. Here on board with Agonza as he heads onto the pit straight. Here we go with DRS open. Jagger now defends the inside, and now Agonza goes to the outside, coming down towards turn 1. He has a fast lap of the race as well. Agonza tries to go round the outside of turn 1. There's a little bit of contact, but Jagger holds on to the lead of this race, and Agonza is trying to get into the lead of the race to extend his championship lead from the win. From the last time he won was in Baku, when he was fighting with Jagger for the win as well. He got robbed of the win in his home race in Spain, and he bottled a possible victory in Monaco. Can he win today in Canada? But Jagger still leads at the moment. Agonza is all over the back of him though, and he's also probably going to get past him at some point. Here they come, down towards the hairpin. Agonza's going to get DRS again, coming down towards the pit straight. Sentry runs very wide there at the exit of the hairpin. And Fajrul is also all over the back of Lucky Racer. As now, here we go, Agonza with DRS coming down towards the final chicane. And he goes to the inside of Vladimir Jagger and gets into the lead of the Canadian Grand Prix. The championship leader has taken the lead of this race away from Jagger, and the Haas gets into the lead of the race. And Jagger down to 2nd place, the pole position man. And Sentry now is in 3rd place, but now here is Fajrul pressurizing Lucky Racer. It's a very close battle between those two. Meanwhile, Combined is gaining on Wesley after he passed Savage. And I forgot to say, a lap ago, the Boom retired after understeering off the track at turn 5, he reported, and that put him out of the race. So the first retirement is the Boom. Not a good start to his returning race after his race ban in Monaco. So that's a DNF for him. Here is Ventrox all over the back of Harry Tech. As now, here are the replays of the start. Vladimir Jagger, the pole sitter. Here is his start. And he actually got a good start, but Wesley got an even better start and went alongside him into turn 1. But Jagger had the inside line and held on to the lead into that corner. So here we go, coming into the chicane, and Jagger's just comfortably leading the race for the first 4 laps until Agonza passed him for the lead. As now, here is on board with the current leader of the race, Agonza. He started from 3rd place. And here we go, you can see how good Wesley's launch was compared to Vladimir Jagger. They were side by side, and there you go, Jagger has the inside line. And Wesley actually got pushed out wide, which meant Agonza almost got past him, coming down towards turn 1. And there is Sentry trying to look on his inside, but he didn't do that either. But Agonza tried to give him space. And it was the carnage that all happened behind that pair and those 4 drivers. And you're about to see it in a sec, as we show Harry Tech's point of view of the start. This is going to show the incident that happened around the end of the first chicane. So Lucky Racer got a pretty poor start once again, and Ventrox also got a poor start. And Harry made up 2 places. Ventrox went back around the outside and got into 7th place. Harry in 7th place. is now coming into the first chicane. And you can see that Ventrox actually triggered the incident by spinning combined round. Then there's just a chain reaction with Fajal hitting Harry, and then that put Harry into Ventrox. And that was a very unlucky scenario for Ventrox as he got damaged there. Fajal was Fajal was more lucky as he did not get any damage on his car after that crash. And it made Fajal, that's what made Fajal go from 11th to 6th. Meanwhile, here is Combined to the outside of Wesley coming down towards turn 1 and doesn't quite get the move there on lap 7 of the Canadian Grand Prix. As now coming down towards turn 3, Lucky Racer gets a 3-second time penalty for multiple warnings. And here we are.
Sentry gaining on
Sentry now is gaining on his teammate Vladimir Jega. Coming down towards turn 1, Agonza is pulling away from the pack, and he's currently leading the race still. Vladimir Jega with his wet setup as well as it's like what Wesley has. He is going to drop back from the rest of the field. Sentry, his teammate, is catching him. Coming to turn 1. It's a great four-way battle for second place at the moment. Vladimir Jega is in second place. Sentry is in third. Lucky Racer is in fourth. And Fajal in fifth for Renault. Just watching these three battle it out. Agonza now has a 2-second lead at the end of lap 7. And there's Sentry very close to his teammate Jega. Coming down towards turn 1. He's going to get the slipstream now. Coming down towards turn 1, Combined gets his first penalty of the race. As now Sentry had a little look up the inside of Jega, but he wasn't close enough to go for the move. As now Sentry oversteers a little bit there. Coming down towards the chicane. And on board with Fajal now behind Lucky Racer. And Savage sets the fastest lap. Somehow on the Super Softs of a 112. That's very interesting. I don't know how he did that. But now here we go. On board with the Williams of Lucky Racer. Coming down towards the final chicane. Sentry is having a little look up the inside of his teammate Jega. Here we go, coming into the chicane now. Is Sentry going to get past Jega now? Coming down towards turn 1. Here comes Sentry to the inside of Vladimir Jega. Coming down towards turn 1. The Mercedes are side by side coming into turn 1 and turn 2. Jega has the inside line into the next corner. And holds on to second place. But now, Jega still has the inside line and does hold on to the place. And Lucky Racer is just watching the battle unfold in front of him. So Jega holds second place from Sentry. But surely this is not over yet, as Jega is very slow on the straight. So Sentry might get past him with DRS on the straight. But Lucky Racer is keeping in the slipstream. And he's surely going to get advantage. And you can see Fajal right behind Lucky Racer as well. This is a very good battle for second place. Fajal is hunting it down, and here comes Sentry up the inside into the hairpin on Vladimir Jega. Coming into this corner. And Jega holds, and Jega gets back the position. As now the Mercedes are side by side once again, and Sentry gets past Jega finally. As now here comes Lucky Racer to the inside of Vladimir Jega. Coming into the final chicane, he shoots past him. So Jega is losing straight line speed with that wet setup. And now here is Jega with great traction coming out of the final chicane. And now on board with Fajal now. He goes to the outside of Vladimir Jega, and there's contact! And Fajal has crashed into the wall. as he made contact with Vladimir Jega as he tried to go to the outside into turn 1. And he loses half his front wing. A very unlucky incident for the Renault driver. Combined gets 5th place on the inside of Fajal as well. What an interesting incident there. With Fajal, he tried to go on the inside. Meanwhile, Harry Tech retired from the race, the second retirement of the race. And he just went too fast into the chicane there. And basically understeered into the wall. Or oversteered into the wall. Fajal now has completely no front wing. And he's going to go into the pits. Lap 11, as it starts to rain. It is starting to rain, you can see from the grey clouds, and there are a few raindrops on a few onboard cameras. So Fajal will replace his front wing and may go on to a set of intermediates. Even though it may be a little bit too early for the intermediates, he's going to give it a go. So yeah, there he goes, onto the intermediates. He's going to give it a go, even though it may be a little bit too early for the inters. He's still going to give it a go anyways. On board with the Agonza now, locking up into the hairpin. And there is Sentry, 3.7 seconds behind. And on lap 11 now, we have Agonza leading, Sentry in second for Mercedes, and Lucky Racer in third, and then Vladimir Jagger in fourth, Combined in fifth, and then Wesley in sixth, and Savage in seventh, Ventrox in eighth, and Fazrul in ninth for Renault. And here he is, Fazrul, as he came out of the pits, and he oversteers straight into the wall and loses half his front wing, so he's going to have to replace that again. So Fazrul was in such a good position, fighting for second place, running fifth, but battling for second place, and now he's really making a lot of mistakes and getting some bad luck here. So that's unfortunate for him. As now, here we are on lap 12. Here is Combined, gaining on Vladimir Jagger now. Coming down into the final chicane and into turn 1. These two obviously battled in the Spanish Grand Prix and the Bahrain Grand Prix. So these two are the rivals of the season. These two are racing rivals. They've had a lot of fights throughout this season. And there is Wesley all alone by himself in the Ferrari. And there is Savage all alone as well. And here we go. Agonza still dominating this race ahead of Sentry. 3.4 seconds is the gap now. But here is Combined. Still gaining on Jagger. He has DRS available now. He's getting closer and closer. Lap 13. And it's the rain is getting heavier, but it's still not good enough for the Inters. As you can see, Jagger is sliding around now. So it is definitely almost time for the intermediates. Is now into the hairpin. Combined is looking to not make that mistake last season where he dive bombed. He tried to overtake Ping up the inside and actually overshot the hairpin and went off. So he's trying not to repeat that mistake. And now here is Combined getting closer to Jagger with that bad straight line speed he has. Is now out of the final chicane. Combined actually gets some really bad traction there. Meanwhile, Lucky Racer is catching Sentry in the Mercedes. This is going to be quite interesting. Lucky Racer is currently faster than Sentry at the moment. He is catching him really quickly. And here is Fazrul getting lapped by Agonza. As now, here we are on lap 14. It is now surely time for the intermediates. It is actually wet on track now. Lucky Racer just described it by sliding out of the exit of that corner there. And Jagger also sliding out of the hairpin, and DRS has now been disabled. And now that means it's time for the intermediate tyres to be fitted to every driver. Agonza comes into the pits. Sentry comes into the pits. Lucky Racer comes into the pits. Vladimir Jagger and Combined come into the pits. So everyone will come into the pits for intermediates. And Fazrul has gone off. He is already on the intermediates. Agonza pits. He is on the intermediates. Jagger, Sentry's on the intermediates as well. Combined, and Wesley now in the pits. Everyone's going to change to the inters now as it's time for the intermediate weather. The weather has now changed to wet conditions. From the dry start we had, sunny start in fact, it is now wet. It is now quite wet on the track, and it's now time for the inters as DRS got disabled. Sentry gets a penalty for multiple warnings, and the order stays the same as everyone pitted in that time, except for Fazrul, who was already on inters after his previous crash with Jagger. On board with Wesley now, he is in 6th place. And on board with the Red Bull of Combined, he is currently in 5th place. He's going to have to catch Jagger again because he got front wing damage and got a front wing change. So he's going to have to catch him again. And here we go, 4 laps later, and he is catching him once again. The gap is 2 seconds between the Red Bull and the Mercedes. Here we go, lap 19 of the Canadian Grand Prix. What's going to happen in the battle for 4th place between Vladimir Jagger and Combined? The Mercedes and the Red Bull, once again battling on track, just like in Spain and just like in Bahrain. But, well, I don't think Jagger can hold on to this position for much longer. Combined is really catching him quickly, probably due to the straight line speed that Jagger has. And so, and that's slowing him down on the straights, and this track is all about straight line most of the time, so it's a disadvantage to have a downforce setup in this track, because as you can see, there's actually more acceleration zones than there is braking zones. There's only 18 corners in this track compared to 23 in Singapore or something. So Singapore is a downforce track with 23 corners. This has 18 corners. No, actually 15 corners. 15 because there's multiple chicanes on track, but after the chicanes there's actually corners. So here we are on lap 20 of the Canadian Grand Prix. Jagger runs really wide, and combined is going to get some good traction. This is going to be turning into an interesting battle as you head down towards the final chicane. Combined is going to gain some more on Jagger, coming down towards turn 1. Turn 1, but also the final chicane. Here he goes. He's going to get some very nice traction there, and he's got much closer as we start lap 21 of the Canadian Grand Prix. Here we go, coming into turn 1. Combined is closer to Jagger. We have followed the entire lap without cutting here from lap 19 to lap 21. As Combined continues to catch his rival, Vladimir Jagger, in the Mercedes. As Agonza still leads, the gap is 4.4 seconds. Sentry is in P2 for Mercedes. Lucky Racer in third for Williams. They're comfortably in second and third at this stage. But Jagger's fourth place is not comfortable as the Red Bull is charging towards him. The Red Bull is now charging towards and getting closer to his rear end. This is going to be an interesting battle, and it's surely going to be an overtake for Combined on this lap. He is very close to Jagger into the hairpin. He's literally almost touching his rear there. And can he get him on the straight here? Can Combined get Jagger on the straight? On board with him now, coming down towards the final chicane. He is getting closer and closer. Is he going to go for a dive into the chicane? No, he's not. As Jagger was way too slow there. But now into the final chicane. Combined gets some good traction on the Mercedes of Jagger. Coming down towards turn 1. Jagger defends the inside line. And now Combined goes to the outside, coming down towards turn 1. They're going to go side by side through turn 1. Combined tries to go round the outside. And he's got the inside line for the next corner. And he gets the move done. Into fourth place goes the Aussie in the Red Bull. What an overtake by him. He went around the outside at turn 1. Had the inside line into turn 2. They were side by side round that corner. And that's one of the overtakes of the season. As Combined puts in a brilliant move to get into fourth place on Vladimir Jagger. Next up is Lucky Racer, his rival from F1 2016. And they fought, of course, those two in Baku as well. So, wow, that was a great pass from the Red Bull of Combined. A very great overtake. That was very impressive. Very nice to watch as well. That's one of the overtakes of the season for sure. But now Jagger is trying to challenge him, but there is no way that he's going to challenge him because of the straight line speed difference. As you can see, as he got very close to the corners, Combined will now pull away on the straight. You can just see it as well. Combined is pulling away on the straight, unfortunately for him. As now, here we are, lap 24. Agonza is still 5 seconds ahead of Sentry. He is pulling away from the pack. And Sentry pits. Sentry has pitted. What's this going to be? Is this going to be for the wets or the inters again? He's going to change to another set of inters. So what has he actually done there? I think that's an unnecessary pit stop, because that's actually going to cost him a podium because of the amount of penalties he has and stuff. So Sentry pits from second place, and he rejoins in P5 behind his teammate Vladimir Jagger. Lucky Racer in P2 now, Combined in P3. Which will make him get his second podium this season, after the Spanish Grand Prix, which he got second in. And Jagger is in fourth currently, and Sentry in P5. So here we are with Sentry. No, actually, we're actually looking at Jagger now, and Sentry's right behind him. Fajr gets another penalty for multiple warnings. And here we go, a lap 29. Sentry is now catching his teammate, Jagger, coming down towards this corner. There's no DRS available, of course, in the wet, so... Earlier we had DRS available, but now it's not. So now coming down towards turn 9. And Sentry is gaining. But is there really any point to gain? Because he has a lot of penalties. He actually has like 6 seconds of penalties, maybe 9 seconds. So he's not going to get any chance of a podium anytime soon. But here we are with Sentry, lap 29. He's going to try and catch his teammate once again. Is he going to get the move done? Coming down towards the chicane. No, he's not. He's way too far back there. But is he going to get some good traction out of the final chicane? No, he's not. Or yes, no, he's not, because he just oversteered at the exit of the chicane. But now coming down towards turn 1, Sentry is not close enough to go for a move. And he stays in 5th, and Jagger in 4th. So, these two having a battle again, just like at the beginning of the race, in that tense battle, Titanic battle for 2nd place, between him and Jagger, and then also Lucky Racer and Fazrul. But then Fazrul was obviously lost out by getting crashed. But here we go, on board with Sentry once again. He's got some good traction out of the final chicane, and he's going to go to the inside, coming down towards turn 1. And Sentry gets the position now. He has the inside line to turn 1, and he overtakes his teammate Vladimir Jagger, and he gets back up into 4th place. And on lap 31, we have now 4 laps to go in this race. Sentry now has to gain the next 2 positions in order to re-get his 2nd place that he lost out on due to the pit stop. He's got Combined up next, 4.3 seconds ahead of him. Jagger is sliding all over the place. As now here we are on lap 33, as Combined is saving tyres to try not to get a puncture. Sentry caught him really quickly, and now he's all over the back of him. So Sentry going for a comeback, but it may not be worth it because of his time penalties. But we'll see at the end of the race. Lucky Racer is pretty alright in 2nd place. He is not going to get caught by anyone at this stage. Meanwhile, Combined is getting pressurized by the fresh inters of Sentry. He pitted for what was, in my opinion, an unnecessary pit stop, but the guys in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th will take it. Here we go, Sentry now has got slipstream on the Aussie in the Red Bull. And now Sentry gets some great traction out of the chicane. Is he going to get that move on Combined? And Ventrox spun round at the exit of turn 1. As now, here we go, here is Fazrul in 8th place at the moment. And Combined and Sentry are side by side through turn 1 and 2. And Sentry has the better traction because he has fresher tyres, and gets into 3rd place once again. On lap 34, the penultimate lap of this race, Sentry retakes 3rd place. But does he have enough laps to try and catch Lucky Racer? That's a 3-second gap. I don't think he will have enough laps to do that. So he might actually lose out on the podium even today because of his time penalties. So it's going to be a very interesting result. Who will get 3rd and 4th and 5th? And here we go on the last lap of this race. Ventrox has spun once again at the exit of the hairpin. As now here comes Agonza across the line. And he's going to take another victory in this season. He wins the Canadian Grand Prix. Lucky Racer now in the Williams. He's going to take 2nd place. All his results this season have been podiums. It's another podium for him. And he crosses the line for 2nd place for Williams. Sentry across the line in 3rd, but that is provisional. As now here comes Combined across the line. He gets 3rd place, and Vladimir Jagger in 4th. Sentry finishes 5th place due to his penalties. Wesley across the line for Ferrari in 6th place. Here he comes into the final corner. Fazrul is in 8th place for Renault. A disappointment for him. He was in the battle for 2nd place, but he got crashed off. And now Wesley is in P6, and here comes Savage across the line for 9th place. And 2 points. Savage had a fairly lonely race. So Savage actually finished in 8th place due to Fazrul's penalties. Apparently finished 8th, but on everyone else's screen he finished 9th. Anyway, Agonza celebrates his 3rd win this season. He won in Bahrain, he won in Baku, and now he wins Canada. It's his 3rd win of the season, and he's going to extend his lead in the championship. Lucky Racer with his third podium of the season, in his third race of the season too, and combined with his second podium of the season. And the results of the Canadian Grand Prix, we have Agonza winning the race for Haas. Then we have Lucky Racer in second for Williams, ahead of Combined in third for Red Bull. Then CombinedYoutuber in fourth for Mercedes. Then Sentry in fifth for Mercedes, with time penalties putting him from third to fifth. Wesley in P6 for Ferrari, ahead of Ventrox in seventh, and then Savage in eighth. Fajal in ninth, an unlucky race for him, and getting penalties. And then the DNFs were Harry Tech and Thaboom. The championship standings after this race, Agonza leading by 24 points at the moment. CombinedYoutuber is in P2 for Mercedes, ahead of Combined in third for Red Bull. Then at Wattmaster and then Ping, the two Saubers not competing for a while. Then Sentry in P6 for Mercedes after his penalties dropping him down. Wesley in P7 for Ferrari, ahead of Lucky Racer, and then Ventrox ahead of his teammate Cryptox in the two Force Indias. Fajal for Renault, and then Addy, and then Savage, then Harry Tech, then Rantix, and then Thaboom still did not finish a race. He's only finished one race this season, and that was in China. that was the Canadian Grand Prix. Quite an interesting race, and we'll see you for the next round in France, the first ever French Grand Prix in the circuit Paul Ricard. And see you then.